Hi there, I'm Teshik, and this is Pragant Alkov. Today, we're going to talk about Oud with someone I greatly respect regards to Oud, and I think he has Oud as his middle name. Here he is. I introduce you Rahel and I from OudBase. Hello,
Hi, Tyson. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for taking time for me.
Yeah, sure, no problem. It's always a pleasure to speak to you and talk to you about Oud.
and many other things as well.
Of course, yes, of course.
How are
It's
you
always
doing?
yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Lots of things going on, trying to get you know promote Oud as much as possible. Social media and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, busy. Well,
hmm
should be pushing it harder, but yeah, with four kids, it can be a bit difficult. But yeah,
yes, I can imagine that. But
yeah.
before we talking about Wood and your brand,
hmm
for those who don't know about yourself and your brand, can you
hmm
quickly talk us through what you do and who you are?
Sure. Okay, so I actually I married into Oud, believe it or not. My wife's family have been doing it for generations, and in 2012 I married my wife, and I was introduced to Oud like properly. I had smelt it prior to that in the masjids and stuff like this in the mosques.
Yeah.
Um, but then when I met my mother-in-law and she showed me Oud and it was Oud oil, and I was instantly in love with this stuff. It was this great, like, the smell and the effect it had on me was like, and it was I was an instantly addicted to it.
yeah.
It's yeah, it was something that I was like, wow, this is amazing. So fast forward to 2014, when I really got in, because my in-laws, they do wholesale in the UAE.
hmm
And yeah, so I joined them on a venture on some on a trade, and we bought a load of I think it was my first batch. I think it's 11 kilos of Kalimantan, like, triple super, where we had like, I think we when we actually graded everything, we had like a kilo of sinking grade in there amongst it all. So it was the thanks to my brother, sorry, my father-in-law, who's obviously had immense amount of knowledge. He took me to a good supplier, and we'd bought my first batch. Yeah, and since then I was just you know trying to take Oud mainstream. Really, this is what I'm trying to do at the moment. I'm trying to get the word out in the West. Obviously, the
Yeah.
Middle East and the East is everyone knows about it. Well, most people in the Middle East, and but the funny thing is, in some parts of Asia, especially the country I come from, which is Bangladesh, not a lot of people know about it, and it's a and even like internationally, in terms of the knowledge of Oud out there, it's not it's kept under wraps. It's like not a lot of information out there.
Yeah.
A lot of people, there's a
That's
lot of
true.
misinformation. Yeah. So one of the things that my father-in-law's uh, supplier actually suggested to me back in 2014
hmm
was, you know, you need to educate people. He said to me, you need to educate people about Oud. That's what you need to do. And it took me a few years before, because I, I kind of looked at it in a pessimistic way initially, in terms of, excuse me, in terms of, trading in the West.
Mm.
And because prior to that, I was just going backwards and forwards, and selling oud in Dubai with the in-laws. But then in 2019, I decided to take the plunge and do focus on the artisanal aspect of it. you know, the higher grade aspect of oud and oud chips and oud oils. And that's when I started my company. Yeah.
That's a great
So
story.
yeah, it's been a long process, to be quite honest. It's been a very long process. I took the slightly harder route,
Mm,
whereby I purchased my own distillery and shipped it from, went to Thailand, brought my pots, and then shipped it over to the UAE. Had it there for my brother-in-law to kind of, because we had access to materials. It took us a while to set up, and eventually, you know, I started making my own oils, and yeah, this is what I've been doing since then. So yeah, so far so good.
yeah, that's great. But wood must be struck you so hard because not most of the people that smelled wood first time wouldn't start a wood business, isn't it?
Yeah, like this is the thing. I mean, because of the situation I was in
Yeah.
with, I had help. I was very fortunate. I was
Mm,
extremely fortunate, and if I compare myself to all the other Western vendors in the West, and all the guys and the guys I know, yeah, I'm very lucky. I'm extremely lucky, and this is why I thought, look, I'm going to take the full opportunity here and try and make something of something I truly love. So for me, it was a real true blessing. But don't get me wrong, it was still difficult,
mm-hmm.
even with having help from my in-laws and my brother-in-law and stuff like this. It's still very difficult because at the moment I'm really kind of trying to dispel to the average person out there, because everyone's got this idea of oud smelling, fecal, and
Yes.
this has been my mission. My
Yeah.
mission, has been to kind of dispel that idea and
Mm.
get that out of people's mind. Which is, I know it's like it's like climbing Mount Everest, but this is what needs to happen. Because for me, the motivation is if I like this so much, and if millions of people in the Middle East love it and are absolutely addicted to it, and it's obviously has so much benefits, especially even in Asia as well, then how come the Western world hasn't woken up to oud? So for me, it's like, I feel like you know introducing something that is new to a certain degree. I know there are other vendors who have already been doing it, but
Yeah.
they're doing it in a slightly different way to myself. I want it to be more accessible for 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 everyone, not just like the super rich. So yeah, this has been one of my motivating factor.
Mm. There's so much to talk about wood. And do you have any suggestion for today's episode?
Do I have any suggestion of what we can talk about?
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's yeah, it's my favorite subject, so I can blab on all night long, my friend. Um,
But
no, I mean,
you
look,
don't have much time today, isn't it?
well, this is the only downside.
Yeah.
But like for me, it's the more I got into it, and the more information I found out about it,
Yeah.
the more I realized this is just such a blessed product. It's an amazing product.
Yeah,
Not
that's true.
only like because you'll get some of the environmentalists who are like, oh, this and that, the controversial aspect of oud about cutting down trees and stuff like
Yeah.
this. But the real factor is when a tree does get infected,
Hmm.
eventually it dies anyway. You understand what I mean? So
Yeah.
and there's also plantations. There's lots of purposely grown trees all over almost every single country to a certain extent, and so it's not all doom and gloom. And I think it if we can if the oud market and the oud industry can focus on, say, like permaculture.
Mm.
You know, I think if people out there know about permaculture is, this is my understanding, by the way. I hope I get this right. But
Yeah.
permaculture is doing a farming the most natural way of farming, meaning like
Yeah.
meaning like you don't, like, traditional farming is just having this field and just rows of whatever you're growing.
Yeah.
We're talking about oud here, so if you've got rows of arglewood trees,
Hmm.
that's not so natural. You know what I mean? Whereas, like, for instance, if you was to do it like in a permaculture setting, then you would have, yes, you would have probably rows and rows of trees, but not spread out in that kind of way. Spread it out is a slightly different format, but along with other trees and other herbs, other shrubs and other flowers, and making it into kind of a almost like like a jungle to a certain extent. Trying to keep it, and I think this is the key. I think if we can work on farming oud,
Hmm.
and because what's happened now at the moment is pretty dangerous, actually. What's going on in Indonesia, where not just Indonesia, pretty much everywhere, where they've really focused on inoculation substances. And what's happening now is, before, I mean, I suppose people have been looking for inoculation for a long time. Hence why, in Bangladesh, and in Thailand, in Cambodia, they'll, in Bangladesh they'll nail the trees. In Cambodia, excuse me, in Cambodia and in Thailand, they will drill it, and they will put honey in it and to attract the animals and whatnot. So those were the kind of organic, shall I say, the natural way of inoculating it to a certain degree, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we've gone away from that. That process had been doing this had been done for decades. Now we're going away from that in the last, I would say, probably 5 years, maybe longer. I'm not sure exactly, that what I am sure about is that the substances that they're bringing out now are far more potent, I would say, in regards to inoculation. The trees are getting inoculated within 3 months, and 3 to 6 months, and that's super quick. Now, if you think about it, right, two things will happen there. One is that they're going to start inoculating younger and younger trees.
Mm.
Two,
That's true.
the yeah, which is not good for the environment. Two, the product is not going to be as good as the naturally infected ones. Do you understand what I mean?
Mm.
So there's a lot of, it's quite sad, really. I mean, I would love for it to be kind of more um in tune with nature, as opposed to kind of, you know, like before, they used to, the hunters in Indonesia and in India and wherever, all the countries, they would just go out and willy nilly just start cutting down trees and then see if it's got anything in it, and if it hasn't, they'll move on to the next one. And it's, in a way, it's the same thing that's happening with the inoculation processes. Like, I mean, I've seen footage of Indonesia, like literally they're going into the jungle, like actual jungle, looking for the trees, and they're inoculating the crap out of it. You'll see bags of substances and syringes stuck to the tree, and this is like what, and you could see the size of these trees are enormous.
Mm.
I would say anything above, easily above 50 year old, probably 100 year old. One particular
Oh.
photo that I saw, one particular photo I saw was, it really looked like about, I would say, 100 years old easily. It was so big. And I looked at it, I was like, oh man, that's so, you know, in a way, I'm a big tree hugger, um, no,
Yeah.
like it kind of dawned on me one time when I was in Bangladesh and I saw rows of trees with nails in it, and I looked and I was like, man, I feel so sorry for the trees,
Yeah.
because I'm like, I love oud and I love trees, and the thing is, when you find out about trees, and now we know the new research is that the trees communicate with one another. they can feel things and they can sense things, you know, like, so could you imagine having nails in you for 3-4 years of your young life? So they say 5-7, it's just not, yeah. Anyway, that's a separate topic here. I'm getting all emotional about it,
Wow.
but no, yeah, it's so there's a lot of there's a lot of issues which really kind of, the oud industry needs to kind of address, really, in a lot of ways. I think it's there's no regulators. This is the other thing as well. But asides that, I mean, the future can be really bright, because there are ways of, like I say, permaculture is a new system of doing things that, if we could do it like that, then
Yeah.
we can continue having oud for a long time, and natural oud as well, naturally infected oud, because if you're going to do it like a permaculture way of doing it, then the farmers that are growing the trees, if they, like, for instance, if they grew tea with the trees, like tea trees next to the tree, next to arguwood trees, then they've got a short-term income and a long-term income.
Yeah,
Do you
that
see
would
what I
be
mean?
awesome.
Yeah, and it's also probably better for the soil, and better, more nutrients for the tree, which will probably most probably give you a better quality oud at the end of it. So it's kind of, it's just it's a, there's lots that can be done, um but obviously I'm just, I'm just a vendor who's got all these ideas, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean, and the love for it, and the passion for it. But yeah, it takes organizations to actually do these things, but there is no arguwood organizations, proper, within the countries, so
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, I was
Oh,
just went off on the rant there.
you talked about about so many things in one go. So
This is what I mean. It's because there's so many things going on.
yeah,
It's nuts. It's yeah. It's crazy what's happening in the world. But yeah, it's just for me, like, we spoke about recently, the kinam,
yeah,
the cultivated kinam that's come in the market
yeah.
last 2-3 years or whatever it was. Um, and I, like, when I heard that, I was like, wow, please let this be true. That's what's going through my mind, because,
I hope
you
that's
know,
really true.
yeah. I mean, imagine, like, you could cultivate kinam. Is that's just, yeah. For me, when I heard that, it blew me away, and straight away I made an order for some samples and stuff like this, and yeah, and if it turns out to be exactly that, then it smells like it. So, well, I mean, you know, we'll see. Um, but from the way he was describing it, the way they grafted it and everything, it's amazing. I mean, this is where I think the arguwood industry needs to focus. Like I say, but yeah,
But
that's
before
one
we
aspect.
go sideways
Yeah,
further,
yeah, yeah.
I'd like to know more about the difficulties you face as an wood bender.
Typical test,
Dip-
typical
difficulties.
difficulty. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
there's tons of difficulties. I mean, on a basic level, you've got um, you know the difficulties of dealing with traders, other traders, other farmers. I wouldn't even say they're farmers. These are just probably people who are trying to cheat you out of everything. Um,
Yeah.
because this is, again, it's like, because the items are so expensive to buy, there's, wherever that this kind of stuff is happening, you're going to get, a lot of charlatans in the industry. So it's, yeah, there's this, I've lost a lot of money in purchasing oud, whereby the person I'm buying from, isn't as, honest as they're supposed to be, and lost some money that way. You know, all the stuff like glue, coloring, you know, sun oud and stuff like this. There's so many factors that go into purchasing oud, and it can be a big risk. It can be a big risk. So it's just, you know,
Yeah,
it's finding honest vendors, honest suppliers.
yeah.
Um,
I see more and
yeah.
more people trying to sell fake stuff online.
Mhm.
It must be gonna increasingly difficult to source the genuine stuff.
Yes,
So,
for sure.
can you tell me about how do you source your own? I guess
Right.
I
So
guess you won't just send DM to random guys on Instagram and get the cheapest tool you can get.
yeah, I think, look, the thing is,
Yeah,
it's a number of things.
yeah.
It's knowing, you have to know your wood first of all. You have to know, like, okay, so what does let's say Hindi oud, what is the natural color of Hindi oud? You got to know that first of all, right?
Mhm.
Second of all, you know, you got to know about your grades. You got to be able to spot telltale signs if it's been colored, um, the pricing and stuff like this, and also the individual that's selling it. You know, um, there's a number of factors
Hmm.
um, that goes into it, and yeah, again, that's really kind of, it's a juggling act to a certain degree, because obviously when you're doing it over the phone, me personally, I prefer, if I'm buying small quantities, then that's fine. I can do a deal as long as I can see that the product is legit. But when it comes to bigger orders and stuff, like I would, I would go over to the country and I would meet whoever I need to meet and
Mhm.
see the product for myself. Because honestly, like, if you're going to go into thousands of dollars in buying, you're going to go into kilos and kilos. I would never, like, no one would do that unless they've got trusted suppliers already. But
Yeah,
prior to meeting that trusted supply, you have to go over and see the person, see who they are, and pay them a visit, and and build uh, a relationship with them. This is
Mm.
how I would do it, but a lot of what I've noticed, a lot of people nowadays are just like, it amazes me, because they'll just do it through social media and stuff like this, and then a
yeah.
few weeks later you hear them complaining, oh man, this guy did this to me and that guy did that to me, and they're not the only one. I'm guilty of it as well. But like I said, I try, and when it comes to buying stuff online, I always try and keep it at a small amount, as opposed to going and buying larger amounts. I'd never do that.
I think buying Udo itself is quite easy, but it's the it's the finding the good stuff in good price.
Yeah,
That's the difficult part.
yeah, 100% agree with that. I think that the price is obviously an issue, but it's more about finding the good stuff. That's the genuine stuff. Is
Yeah.
it's the difficult bit. Do you know what I mean? It's like I, I mean, I I think it was a year ago. I think I was speaking to this Indonesian brother who I was dealing with, and I started inquiring with him. Can you get hold of any sinking grade wood and stuff like this? And the
Yeah.
first thing he said, and because he's he was a pretty honest guy. First thing he said, no, brother, I don't want to do this. I said, why not? Because I was gonna get him to purchase it for me, because he's got good knowledge of it. He said, first thing he said to me, he said, listen, don't bother, because you will lose money,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of dodgy sinking grade wood out there, and it. He said to me, you're better off just going for a lower grade. So that kind of that was a clue, to kind of a warning, shall I say?
Mm.
Um, but then, Ben, there are vendors out there who are, it blows my mind. They're just buying sinking grade this and sinking grade that, and yeah, I mean, who knows? It could be all Sanai. This time when I went around, like I think it was 3 or 4 months ago when I was in Dubai, I got introduced to quite a bit of Sanai, and I was quite amazed in the quality of it in terms of its looks and even some of its smell is really good. I was like, wow. I made a video about it, and I was actually genuinely thinking of selling it in my in my shop at one point. You know, so yeah, it's difficult, very difficult.
Sorry, can you tell me what Sanai is? Because it's the term I'm not used to
Okay,
hearing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm going. So Sanai wood is, in basic terms, it is if it's good wood, then it's actual Argo wood, but low grade.
Yeah.
If it's the good stuff, then it's actual Argo wood, but low grade Argo wood. And what they'll do is they'll put it in a vacuum chamber and inject it with oil and resin, oud oil and oud resin. But sometimes they inject it with other stuff as well. So you got to be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so really, I would say it's the closest thing to oud. Actual, I mean, it is in a way actual oud, but it's not. If you know what I mean, it's like it's obviously whatever grade it is, it's not naturally comes like that. So it's man-made to a certain degree. But like I smelt Sunai wood that had oud and rose in it as well. I was like, what? Like I picked up the wood chip and I was like, and I smelt it and I was like, wow, this smells like rose. It kind of reminded me of a perfume. And he goes, yeah, they put rose oil in it as well, you know.
Yeah.
And then there was other Sunai wood chips that were like really high. Like when I burnt the chips, it really smelled like a high grade oil. I was like, I was blown away, you know. So,
Yeah.
but like I said on my video is on my YouTube channel, it's like it is the closest thing to oud, and it's probably, in my opinion, it's probably better than most Bahors out there. You know what I mean? I would say like 90% of the Bahor that's in the market,
Yeah.
Sunai would easily beat that. And it's like, you know, it's the next best thing to actual oud, and in terms of price, you know. But yeah, it's not 100% natural. So yeah, hope that explains
Maybe I
it.
should try some of Sanais you have talked about.
Yeah, I actually went into a store and I think the guy had like 13 different types of Sunai oud.
13?
And
wow, that's
13, yeah, 1-3. Like he wasn't, you know, he wasn't cheating anyone. He literally had Sanai this, Sanai that, and written down, you know. So I just said to him, okay, look, I want like a few grams of every single one you've got, you know.
Yeah.
and then that came up to a lot of money. And so I just said to him, I said, look, actually, give me the best of all the 13 you've got. So and it turned out to be like 7. There were 7 different Sunai wood chips that he gave me, which were the best out of the ones that he had.
That's
and
still quite a lot.
Say again?
That's still quite a lot.
7, still a
7
heck of a
out
lot.
of 13. That's great.
Yeah, heck of a lot. Yeah, it's heck of a lot. You know, so this is why I was totally blown away. So, you know, it's the technology and the effort that people are putting into this kind of, I suppose in a way it was initially was meant to cheat people with, you know, and then eventually someone must have thought, well, why don't we just be honest and just say it's Sanai, it's you know, it's enhanced wood, and we can sell it in an honest way. And eventually that's pretty much what's happened. But initially there was you know, people getting ripped off left, right and center because they bought big, you know, logs of sinking grade, like, oh, look at this, what I've bought. And then obviously when they burn it and they realize actually this is not, you know. And there's also some species that are very similar. I mean, I reckon they're probably Argowood species, but because out of I think 18 different Argowood species, I think only 9 or 10 actually produce the oud resin, sorry, oud oil and resin. and the rest don't really produce that kind of smell, that the aroma. So there must be, out of the rest, there must be a handful of species that actually produce the resin and the oil, but there's no aroma because, obviously I've smelt I have been cheated before, so I've smelt sinking grey pieces where there's no aroma coming out at all, but there's a ton of oil and resin coming out. So yeah, it's a lot of that kind of stuff comes from Indonesia. So yeah, you've got to be careful.
Yeah. You talk you talked about the difficulties of creating woods and spotting fake woods. I think I'm never gonna able to tell the fake stuff from real stuff.
No. I think you can. You can, as long as it's just like grading. It's like to an average person, to yourself, and to a lot of people.
Yeah.
That they wouldn't be able to. But with time, the more time you spend around wood, and you will eventually, you will, and you'll but the thing is, this is the thing about the amount of knowledge that's out there, as opposed to, because we're not like me and all the other Western vendors. We're not in the market. We're outside of the market. We're in the West. We're in the UK and America and various other countries.
Yeah, that's right.
That aren't really even next to Asia. So the thing is, there's not that much knowledge, and this is what I've realized about being on some of these forums. And I'm not trying to put anyone down here. But it's the knowledge. It's not. I mean, when you go there, and this is what I say in my videos as well. I get humbled. I like some of the stuff that I come out with. Okay, some people be like, "Oh, he's he's a bit I think he's showing off or something." Like this stuff is basic stuff that I talk of, like that I know. I've just been taught basic stuff that,
Yeah.
and a lot of people, but the thing is, again, it's just like being around the products. If you're doing that, if you're selling kilos and kilos, like the Middle East, millions of kilos go through those countries, Saudi, Doha, Bahrain, and Dubai, Kuwait, like millions of kilos, I would say. And the traders there, honestly, will blow your mind. Like they can spot a, like, I'll give you an example. Me and my brother-in-law, we went to, I think I may have told you, but we went to Thailand. I think we were in Khao Yai region.
Yeah.
And we went to see a hunter, and literally he was his I think his son or something was coming along with like this. He had a bowl of like supposedly wild oud chips, and it was like almost 3 meters. For me, it was like 3 meters away.
Yeah.
And I had my back towards the guy who was coming, and my brother-in-law just said to me, "Look, they're bringing us some coloured wood," and I was like, "What?" By the time I turned around, the guy was like about a meter away, and I still couldn't tell the difference. And he'd seen it like instantly, like, and I was like, "Whoa," So, but again, all these kind of skills and knowledge just come through just working in that actual industry, being there and seeing all the stuff that's going on. So there's an immense amount of knowledge there, because it's it's the Middle East. It's the biggest market there. So I personally believe that's there you'll find people who really, and the other place as well, because Singapore, right? There's a market there as well. So those two kind of areas will have like people who really know their stuff, because when we're talking about a market, we're not just talking about a place where they just sell single region products. That some of these guys buy products from oud from every single country you can think of that has oud. So the knowledge there is it's immense, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right. If you think about Oud in Oud information about Oud in general, you can
Mm.
you really can't find much information on online.
No, man. Yeah.
There's some basic stuff out there, but they don't go deep enough.
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
they just scratch the
I,
surface.
yeah, and look, if you remember, I don't know if you've seen, Sent from Heaven,
Yeah,
that documentary, Al Jazeera documentary, and the presenter goes to Abdul Samad Al Quraishi, one of his shops, or one of the owners of, or shall I say, the guy himself. I can't remember,
yeah,
but he was basically going through with him, and he was telling him how to kind of identify when you got oud and stuff like
yeah,
this. This stuff is basic. When he says, yeah, you can hear the sound,
yeah,
you can, some people bite into it. He says all these things. Um, yeah, these are this like basic knowledge,
yeah,
but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
but when you're
That
in that market and you see like a kid, right? Who's probably 22 years old, right?
yeah.
In fact, I do know actually he was 22 years old. So he was my brother-in-law's. One of his cleaners, basically. Cleaners meaning the they have separate people who basically shave
Mm,
off all the unnecessary white wood off the oud chips, to get to a more of a finished product, more of a closer to the aroma sort of thing. So we call them cleaners in the industry. And so this kid, he does. He's taking like kilos and kilos of my brother-in-law to go, and they got their own business. So it's groups of guys. They live in a flat or a house, and they're just like, that's all they do all day long. So now
mm.
this boy, he's obviously been doing it since he was probably 10 years old, and that's no
Oh, yeah,
exaggeration, right?
yeah.
'Cause he came from Bangladesh, and he went to Dubai to obviously make more money as
Mm,
a cleaner.
yeah, yeah.
So he would come along every few days and pick up goods for my brother-in-law to take and to clean up, and to make the oud better. So when I was interacting with him, and we were going through, because my brother-in-law was saying, look, you guys missed out on this, and you didn't do this piece and that piece, and I could see this guy was like, he was just this boy, he was just literally picking out all the good pieces, and just, and I just started talking to him and befriending him, and he's telling me really kind of the intricate part of, like, shaving off. How would you do it? How can you tell when this is like this this because they have names for different shapes,
Yeah.
of oud. Like, for example, muri. So now muri in the Hindi thing, it means the corner, or the corner of the infection.
Mm,
So what that is referring to is they have lots of these kind of insects and worms in Assam and in Bangladesh that burrow into the tree, which causes the infection. So what happens is that particular bit of it's regarded to be kind of really aromatic, because that's the beginning of the infection. So what that it has a certain shape, and this shape is almost like it almost looks like a worm. It's really weird. It has this like a half worm shape. You know what I mean? Like
oh, yeah.
yeah, it's a shape of like a little tiny hole that the worm has burrowed into.
Oh,
So
yeah.
again, and then you have other shapes where, chal and chutneys, and they have all these different names for them because of the shape and stuff like this. So it's he would tell me, like, how that shape is formed within the tree.
Oh,
It was an experience and a half. That's all I gotta say. Yeah,
that's amazing.
it's yeah, it's beautiful, man.
And
Really
he's
beautiful.
only 10 years old.
Yeah, look, this is the the grim side of the oud trade in regards to because it's a lot of these stuff is grown in relatively poor countries. like
That's true.
Bangladesh
Yeah.
and India. And really, I mean, they've got two choices. Either, well, they've only got one choice, not two choice.
Yeah.
It's they have to work. They can't go to school because they don't have the money to go to school.
Uh,
So, in order to, as soon as they reach a certain age, they put them into any job that they can, their parents can get them into. And unfortunately, some of them that's a lucky job. Really, like sitting there and carving away. There's other jobs that kids do in these countries are far worse. So, it's one of those sad things. But this particular guy, he's done really well for himself. He made it over to Dubai, and he's earning good money. So good for him. And he's immensely knowledgeable as well. And I'm sure he'll probably end up being a trader at some point.
I th- it's the first time I heard about child labor in wood industry.
First time you heard about? Sorry, what?
It's the first time I heard about child labor in the wood industry. It's it's really a shame.
Yeah, it's what I mean. There's a lot of like I say, it's a complicated industry.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of sad issues. And where people, like some of the stuff that most food vendors don't want to talk about. Deforestation and stuff like this. But it all really comes down to money. It all comes not because they're greedy. It's because they're in a poor country and they need to make money. And I think it's to a certain extent is responsibility of people like myself and people who use it to kind of try and figure out ways for these people to do to earn in a better way, so we can all like benefit,
Yeah.
them, us, and everyone. And especially the earth. I don't want to. Last thing we want to do is just cut down every single bloody tree, and how would we breathe?
Yeah.
Anyway, I
I,
think I'm going into my environmentalist mode at the moment.
I think in learning about this behind the scenes make us more grateful as a end consumers because we
Yeah,
often forget about how much effort and time it takes to produce wood.
yeah, for sure. This is what I mean. The thing is, when you have an appreciation for something,
Yeah.
and then you go out and you see it, and you see how long these trees take to grow, and then the person whoever's invested his time and effort into it, they don't see any money coming back for at least, I would say, anything between 7 to 10 years. So, and that's just the lowest grade ones. So yeah, it's so obviously with the new inoculation processes that are coming in, a lot of people are starting to adopt these methods, and getting trees inoculated really quickly. So yes, it's quite scary really when you think about it, and how things are going to be in the future. But I think really what we need to focus on is try and solve issues as opposed to.
Maybe it's better to introduce some kind of fair trade in wood industry.
Yeah,
Just like coffee industry.
yeah, I think, but yeah, for sure. But I think we need to figure out first and foremost on how to farm it better, you know,
Yes.
and give ideas and ways and means for some of these people, these farmers, to like I said, like if they was to grow, tea alongside Arglewood, then the teas would give them a short term income,
Mm-hmm.
and the Arglewood trees would be that kind of investment that in 20 years that they could cut a number of trees down and pay for their kids' education, university education or something. So there's yeah, there's lots of.
Isn't that the backyard wild that they call in India?
Sorry, what was that?
Isn't that the backyard wild they call in India?
Yes.
Yeah,
Look,
yeah,
this is the other thing. It's funny you mentioned that
yeah,
because someone else mentioned that the other day on the forum.
yeah.
It's there are different types and different ways of farming Argwood, and in Thailand, in Cambodia, in Laos, and places like that, they've been farming Argwood the traditional way. Not, I mean, like in rows and rows of trees, and it's similar sort of way that is also in India and in Bangladesh. But whereas in Bangladesh and in India, more so in India, it's especially Assam, it's far more rural. It's not well developed. Assam is actually really poor, far poorer than Bangladesh, and some of their road systems are awful. But because of this, just so much greenery and there's just so much forest. This is why the infection rate's far higher. Natural infection rates is far higher in Assam as opposed to Bangladesh. Whereas in Bangladesh there is a natural infection rate, but it's not as much as in India. So that's why they have to nail the trees. But yeah, but in Assam they don't need to do that. It's just like like I say, a lot of insects that are burrowing into the trees and infecting the trees, and the fungus is far more prominent over there. And like you say, people's they have Argwood trees in their backyards, along with all sorts of other trees as well. So there's an abundant amount of trees in these areas that get infected naturally. Whereas like I say, in Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos, where I've been before and seen for myself, the trees are inoculated. And like I say, the natural way of them inoculating the trees, or shall I say the best way, is they'll drill tiny little holes in it, and then they just put a bit of honey inside and get the ants and whatever else to burrow into it. But obviously now that's changed. So yeah, the market is going to be awashed with probably far lower quality wood chip. But then having said that, I haven't actually tried this inoculated substance stuff yet. It'll be interesting to try that myself.
And the one you sourced from Bangladesh was really good.
The nailed stuff, yeah.
I think that one was. I couldn't believe it was cultivated once.
Yeah, but we see with them, it doesn't stay in the nailed wood chips, the ones I sold to you. They don't. It doesn't stay in the tree for very long, the infection. So this is where I just think wow, you could really kind of scale things here. Like they don't have, if they was to nail, like they don't even have the screw nails. They have like normal nails where they just hammer it in, right? If they was to have the ones that you could screw it in, it's just I'm just giving it just a basic example. If they could afford those nails, then what they could do in stages, right? They could slowly start taking the nail out, bringing it out slowly, and then you won't have these holes inside the actual wood chip. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but they don't even, like, a lot of them don't even have the money for that. They just, they're also stuck in their ways and their system of doing things that they don't bother, trying to innovate to a certain extent.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it's close to an hour, and I know you don't have much time today.
Yeah.
So I guess
I have to
get you next time. I think I have to have you multiple times.
No, it was I hope I didn't bore you with with all the stuff that I was talking about.
I can listen to you 24/7.
Oh, that's great, man. Now you know that. Now I know you're an addict just like me.
Actually, you're the one who made me addicted to Oud. Because
Oh, really?
your Oud oil is the first Oud oil I've ever smelled.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really good to hear. I wish I had that effect on all my customers. I'd be a very rich man.
Anyway, thank you so much for your time, Ryan.
It was my pleasure. It was nice talking to you, Tyson, and wish you well with the podcast, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
I hope to talk with you really soon.
I'm sure we will. I'll speak to you soon. Have a nice evening, or morning, shall I say, for you?
It is morning. And thank you, dear listener. And for those who more questions about Oud, where can people find you, right?
Just www.oudbase.com is my website, and my YouTube channel, OudBase, and also Instagram, oud.base, and also TikTok, same name, OudBase.
There's only one OudBase, isn't it?
There's only one OudBase so far.
There's no fake.
I hope not.
So people, check out OudBase.com, and it's been a pleasure to talk with you, right?
Likewise, Isaac. Thank you for having me.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.